line showed Zelensky to be an everyman, an integral part of the social network that was Ukraine. By February 2022, Zelensky had been president for just under 3 years. Voters had first known him as Vasil Goloborodko, a plain-speaking history teacher who was miraculously catapulted into the job of president and takes on Ukraine's entire political system. The part Zelensky played in a television satire called Servant of the People. After launching his presidential campaign in December 2018, Zelensky's background as an actor and producer would prove crucial to his success. He knew how to mirror his audience, and voters recognized themselves in his likeness. He did not just speak at Ukrainians, he read their lips and articulated their feelings. Suddenly, that ability was more important than ever. Ukraine had long been a people, a place, and after the 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union, a state. Now it was also becoming a civic nation, one defined not by language or ethnicity, nor by its ancient history or faith, but by its values, its way of life, and its people's readiness to die for it. Zelensky had once lent his voice to Paddington Bear in the Ukrainian dubs of Paddington and Paddington 2. Now he was lending his voice to the Ukrainian people. The birthplace of this nation was Maidan Nezalezhnosti, Independence Square in Kyiv, the site of several revolutionary uprisings in which Ukrainians had come together to decide their own future. In 2014, they went there to say they belonged to Europe and to overthrow Viktor Yanukovych, a Moscow-backed thug who had tried to deny them this right. The revolution ended in violence. Yanukovych fled, and Russia annexed the Ukrainian territory of Crimea and started a war in the east of the country. Zelensky was not in Maidan in 2014 and did not participate in what became known as the Revolution of Dignity, although he did call on Yanukovych to step down. It was not that he disagreed with the protesters' demands, rather that he was driven neither by nationalism nor ideology, and, stylistically, revolutions were not his genre. As a successful television producer, he had a strong sense for his audience, slightly cynical, self-reliant, conformist, but also deeply grounded. During the revolution, much of this audience stayed at home watching his sitcoms. But while Zelensky was not a participant in the Maidan uprising, his political career was a reaction to its broken promises. Like much of the country, he cringed when politicians used lofty language while scheming for their own financial advantage, and was appalled when the old elites regrouped, wrapped themselves in new banners, and went back to their old ways. But while the establishment carried on as before, the country was changing. Its civil society was growing, and it was no longer prepared to put up with business as usual. In 2019, Ukrainians rebuked the corrupt post-Soviet elites by voting for Goloborodko, aka Zelensky, as president. The idea of an outsider bursting into an oligarchic system where money decided everything, and where owning a television station, a bank, and a small private army was usually a prerequisite for political power, seemed almost as improbable a story as Goloborodko's. But Ukrainians have a taste for the improbable. A pro-Ukrainian Russian speaker from a Jewish family in eastern Ukraine, Zelensky received the votes of 3/4 of the electorate across the entire country. Never before had the electoral map of Ukraine looked so cohesive. Some liberals in Ukraine and Ukraine watchers in the West were skeptical about Zelensky's victory. They expressed concern about his lack of either a comprehensive program or a professional team. But what Zelensky lacked in political experience, he made up for in his sense of humor, his chutzpah, and his communication skills. A set of assets that were essential in post-Soviet Kryvyi Rih, the rough industrial city in central Ukraine where Zelensky had grown up. The president reflected Ukraine not as some romantic idea, but as a reality. Sometimes flawed and infuriating, but also benevolent and distinctive. His approach to politics was also distinct from that of his predecessors. He did not exploit regional linguistic differences in the way